Some boss battles feel like they are just taking an eternity, and we've been doing a series on just that. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 longest boss battles in video games, part 2. Before we start, some of the most infamously long bosses in gaming got a shout out in our first video. Stuff like the end from Metal Gear Solid 3, Nick's avatar from Persona 3, Ygrath Zero from Xenoblade Chronicles, and Absolute Virtue from Final Fantasy XI, but there are so many overly long bosses out there, we may still only be scratching the surface in making the second video here, so it may be something we revisit again in the future. If there's one you're just dying to hear us talk about, leave us a comment. Without any further ado, at number 10 is the Ancient Dragon from Dark Souls 2. A boss that isn't necessarily the longest thing ever, but it sure does feel, like I said earlier, like an eternity. The Ancient Dragon is an optional boss in Dark Souls 2. You never actually have to fight it, and for most people, that's good enough, because this thing has two of the worst things a boss can have: a gigantic health bar and a bunch of attacks that can either kill you instantly or nearly kill you instantly. On the plus side, it is slow, predictable, and pretty easy to bait once you understand what kind of attacks it does. The worst thing about that, though, is it's just tedious to fight. That is a lethal combination of being boring and incredibly dangerous, so frankly, in dealing with the haze that is sure to roll in at some point, you are probably going to be more likely to make a mistake, and one mistake can leave you dead. We were debating whether to put this guy or Dark Eater Midir from Dark Souls 3 on here, but for me at least, the Ancient Dragon boss feels longer. Which one is worse is up to you, but you can't deny this guy is a total slog. At number 9 is the Dark Lord from Doom Eternal. Probably the most recent example on this list, and man, this dude is something else. Imagine a dual boss in a game like, I don't know, like a character action game like Devil May Cry. Then just give him way too many health bars, and if you screw up, they regenerate. Unlike the Ancient Dragon, this guy's just an absolutely intense battle that you will be sweating bullets throughout. But to make matters worse, it requires an absolute precision if you actually want to beat it. Doom Eternal was a really tough game, arguably too tough, at least in parts, and depending on who you ask, but the Ancient Gods DLC takes that difficulty to a new level, and for some people at least, the Dark Lord is just the pinnacle of difficulty. Going through Reddit, there are literally people who struggled with this guy for over an hour. In Doom Eternal, a game where fights usually end in a few minutes, tops, this guy can take that long. It's purely because of his regenerating health, too. If you shoot him at the wrong time, he gets health, and if you don't take out the monsters he summons, he gets health. And oh yeah, if he hits you with a close range attack, he gets health. There's so much crap that can go on in this battle that result in him healing. In fact, the only thing that doesn't seem to heal him are long range attacks, but guess what? The main way to get him to attack you in a manner that you can counter is getting close to him. So basically, you're screwed either way. If you are not on the ball at all times in this fight, you are not going to do enough consistent damage to this guy, and he will fully regenerate his current health bar. And of course, he only gets tougher as the fight goes on, so it's just all around brutal. And number 8 is Master G the Invincible from Borderlands 2. In part 1, we mentioned Dexiduous the Invincible, that huge pain in the ass from Borderlands 2, but there's another incredibly annoying boss in that game, who in some ways can actually be worse than that oversized Daddy Longlong as we previously covered. I am of course talking about Master G, a bonus from the Captain Scarlet DLC. What makes this guy such a long fight is the bizarre and ass-backwards strategy you have to use to fight him. This guy has a shield that basically protects him from any and all damage. So okay, how do you hurt him then? Well, there's these sandworms that spawn around the arena, right? And when you kill them, a pool of acid forms around where they died. For some reason, the pool spreads infinitely, so it's very easy for the entire area to just get flooded with acid if you're not careful. So okay, to actually hurt this guy, you have to lure him to near the center of one of the pools. The acid does hurt you, but it also hurts him. And when someone stands close to the center of a pool, it starts to get smaller instead of bigger, so when the pool disappears, it gives the person who made it shrink a permanent debuff that does constant damage. So that's what you have to do. You have to lure the guy around and attempt to get him to soak up acid pools, so they eventually remove his shield. Safe to say, it can take a long time. It's a bizarre, annoying, and incredibly frustrating fight. The minute people figured out this exploit for it, that's what everybody started doing, because nobody has the patience to take this guy legitimately. At number 7 is the final boss in the wonderful 101. Everybody loves a good final boss, and there are some developers out there who just try to top themselves every single time with how crazy their final battles can be. Platinum is the king of this. They are the biggest, most out-of-control spectacle generators in gaming, and with the wonderful 101, they topped even themselves. The final battle against the alien leader, called Jerkinga, is a 3-stage descent into madness split up by a flying escape sequence and a lot of cutscenes. You could probably just count the entire last mission as the last boss if you wanted. The whole thing's crazy, but even just counting the moment where you enter the final boss area, this guy takes nearly an hour to beat. And this is a platinum action game, so while the whole thing looks goofy, it's actually got a lot of technical and challenging gameplay, so it is not a breeze by any means. There's so much wacky stuff that happens here, and we don't have nearly the time to describe it. Just take our word, it is absolutely ridiculous, and it is really, really long. At number 6, here's the boss that doesn't take quite as long as some of the others we've mentioned, but it just feels like this massive slog. The final boss of the game, the titular Peace Walker, takes so much punishment and then just keeps going. Most bosses in the Metal Gear games are relatively quick, besides some of the notable exceptions like the end from Metal Gear Solid 3. But in terms of just straight up bosses that take a while, this thing is just the worst. There's nothing too special about it either. It's just got a lot of attacks, and hitting its weak spot is difficult. So the main issue, though, is that it takes a ton of punishment. You feel like you're pounding on this thing forever, and it just has no effect. To make matters worse, it'll start charging up its instant death attack sometimes. If the timer runs out, you're just dead, and if you run out of ammo at a bad time, you may end up screwed too. If you die, yep, you gotta just start the whole thing all over again. It's just an all-around tough fight that drains your limited ammo like crazy. It's a slog and a half to beat, but at least the soundtrack is awesome, I do have to say. At number 5 is the Thugs 4 Less Leader from Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, another one that's not necessarily the longest ever, but it really feels like it. Bosses in the original Ratchet & Clank games tended to have some pretty oversized health bars, but this guy takes things to another level. The amount of health this boss has totally dwarfs the amount the actual last boss has, and this guy's just some sub-boss who doesn't have a proper name. Seriously, I looked him up, he's just like Thugs Leader, Thug 4 I don't even really know how to describe it completely. You encounter him on this lava planet in this massive arena. He basically stomps around firing at you if you try to fight him with normal weapons. You'll just run out of ammo. Yet running out of ammo is the biggest issue with this guy because there's only a limited amount of ammo lying around, and once they're used up, you are out of luck. The only way to damage him is to jump on a turret and shoot at him. His health bar depletes at a glacial pace, and he always ends up destroying the turret after a certain amount of damage is done. It's just a long, slow, and extremely boring, pain-in-the-ass fight to get through. Like most bosses in these games are not nearly this bad. They're at least fun, but this one just isn't. Funny thing is, he was originally going to have even more health, and I guess somebody got them to back down at least a little bit on it. At number 4 is the Sleeper in EverQuest, basically the game that invented the raid boss, so it's not really a surprise that this game, one of the original massively multiplayer online games, had a long as hell boss fight in it. Difference is that this guy was not even meant to be beaten. Found in the Sleeper's Tomb and added to the game with the Scars of Velius expansion, the actual bosses in this dungeon were meant to be 4 ancient dragons found in the area. When you killed them, this guy would wake up, destroy everyone in the dungeon with ease, and rampage through the world of EverQuest for a while. What was interesting about it was that this event only happened once per server. Once the Sleeper woke up and did its thing, that was it. It was designed to be a unique event, not something players could actually beat, but if you put a giant monster in a game, of course people are going to try to beat it. This happened all the way back in 2003. A bunch of guilds on the Rallo Zek PvP server joined forces in an attempt to beat this thing and see what reward you get for killing it, and the only way anyone had a chance of beating it is if all the best players on the server teamed up to take it down, and that is what they did. Progress was incredibly slow, but after about 3 hours they nearly beat it, only to have the developers reset the server before they actually won. They thought players were using exploits to somehow fight it, but that actually wasn't the case. After issuing an apology, they gave people a second chance to fight the thing, and this time they managed to beat it without interference. The fact people were able to kill something that wasn't even meant to be killed is pretty impressive, and it just goes to show you how dedicated MMO players can be. And number 3 is the Dragon in Dragon's Dogma. This guy is basically the raid boss of Dragon's Dogma, has a pretty unique gimmick, at least back when the game came out. Basically no player could kill this thing, it had too much health, and after 8 minutes it'd fly away every time you encountered it. To actually beat it, you had to work with a community where everyone's collective damage would ally to the boss simultaneously, so every bit of damage every online player did would contribute to defeating this thing. This isn't uncommon to see for raid bosses in some phone games now, but like we said, it's kind of unique at the time, especially for a 3D action game. Of course, it was an optional fight, so if you didn't want to engage with the whole thing, you didn't have to. But you could also fight this guy offline as well. The rewards wouldn't be as good, but it's a lot easier to beat if you're playing solo. The fight's pretty much identical to the boss dragon from the regular game, except one major difference. Instead of having one heart, it has 30 hidden all over its body. Attacking these weak points would get you better rewards, and you do way more damage. So how much health does it actually have? Well, it actually varies depending on the community, but the wiki estimates it to be around 3 billion HP. It's impossible to say exactly how long it takes to kill, but it's days at minimum. In terms of longest bosses, it's one of the strangest and longest out there. And number 2 is Adamantoise from Final Fantasy 15. If there's anything that's glaringly missing from the first list, it is this guy. This is an infamous boss, and for good reason. Going through enough comments, I saw somebody mention that they spent nearly 6 hours fighting this thing, only to lose in the end. 6 hours, and unlike that super long boss in Final Fantasy 12, you can't leave and come back to it. You gotta beat this guy in one go. This giant turtle is one of the many recurring enemies in the Final Fantasy series, but for whatever reason, with Final Fantasy 13 and now this game, they really stepped it up. What used to be one of the more standard enemies has become this absolute beast, and they're some of the hardest bosses in the games they show up in. And Adamantoise in Final Fantasy 15 is probably the worst of them all. It's got a massive health bar, which doesn't sound super impressive, but it's a lot for this game, 5 million specifically. Unlike other games in the series, there's no way to break through the damage cap in Final Fantasy 15 with normal attacks, so no matter what, it's going to take a while to grind down this guy's HP. Beyond that, he doesn't actually really do a lot of damage, so it's possible to fight him at relatively low levels. It's just going to take a really long time to beat him. And finally, at number 1 is Pandemonium Warden from Final Fantasy XI. We mentioned Absolute Virtue in the first video, so here's the other over-the-top long boss from Final Fantasy XI, the Pandemonium Warden. Like Absolute Virtue, this guy was so ridiculously hard to kill that the developers eventually just made them easier. According to the fandom wiki, a team of more than 36 players attempted to beat this guy, and we're serious here, they did it for 18 hours and were unable to beat it. Players literally had to stop because they were getting sick, like they were fainting and throwing up. What made him so long is that he had 10 different forms, and every time he switched, he would spawn 8 new pets that had massive health bars of their own that players would eventually have to figure out some way to deal with. Even after nerfing him into oblivion and giving it a 2-hour time limit, it still didn't make this guy easy. It took months until a guild finally managed to beat it, and they only had 5 minutes left on the clock. So yeah, even though this thing isn't the absolute monster it used to be, I think everyone can agree that a boss taking 18 hours to beat is a little excessive, right? 2 isn't quite as impressive as 18, but it's still a long time to fight one enemy. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.